You're listening to the Valley Current.
Hey Ken, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Great.
Just checking my email to see if everybody, you sent it to everybody else, so they should be joining us here pretty soon.
Yeah, I hope they got that little update suggestion.
I think so. Yeah, it's not.
This multi-room problem has not quite been solved yet by Zoom. They're probably working on a solution right?
Yeah. I use Zoom pretty extensively.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried a couple of others. I've played around with WebEx, BlueJeans, but Zoom right now seems to be, if you're conversing with it and can manipulate it,
Right.
it works pretty well. And BlueJeans is pretty close.
What's the one that you like best?
I think Zoom right now, just more familiar with it. I've done a lot of teaching there. And I've had a couple of comments, mostly by younger attorneys, because they want to come back to me because a lot of the older mediators are using two Zoom accounts, got Zoom on one computer, and on a laptop they've got Skype, and they're going back and forth. And so no, if you learn how to manipulate one program, it's a lot more efficient. And so right now, probably Zoom, but I'm kind of playing around with some other stuff. There's an outfit that's forming up, the startup called New Era ADR.
Right.
They want to use Google Meet, so I'm kind of beta testing with them. But they go out and get the clients, bring them back for e-mediation or e-arbitration.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of knowledge that's going to be generated about what works best in what context. Like when you have six parties, six set of lawyers. I mean, you can do this multi-room stuff, but I've seen people kind of botch it too. So.
Yeah, that's what I've been told also, that you really have to know, the mediator has to know how to use this. And if you're relying on a paralegal or some lawyer's office, it's not going to be quite the same.
Right. I mean, there are a lot of folks who aren't as savvy as you and I are, and they're kind of like using technology assistance, and their view of life is, you know, they didn't go to law school to manipulate a keyboard. You know, they don't want to learn the new stuff. You know, they just don't.
Well, it's funny because years ago I used to dictate. I guess you could say that about a dictating machine.
Right. Hi, Wayne.
Yeah.
Hello, hello everyone. Yes, hello,
Hi.
Jack.
Hi.
Ken.
Yeah. So you know, Ken and I were just debating what's the best product, and everyone is sort of defaulted to Zoom, but there's actually about 24 other products. Most of them are unknown. The three big ones are Teams by Microsoft, WebEx,
Yes,
and then Skype, and of course the one that Google puts out for free as well, called Google Meet or Meet Google, something like that. So there's a growing number of products, and it may be that they start to differentiate by type of knowledge worker. That is, programmers will sort of go with the Microsoft Teams because it's tied to GitHub, and GitHub is a big repository of open source. And Teams is probably going to integrate a way to get to GitHub very easily and very seamlessly. I mean, I think for my money, I'm waiting for the one that enables pictures to more easily be shared quickly with an emphasis on quickly on the screen. So I could share a picture by going to the virtual background, but it doesn't really do justice to the picture because it'll be in the background. It won't be in a separate picture. So if I say, hey, this is what I was doing a half hour ago this morning in a yoga studio, you know, but I have to like move around to let you see what's really going on there, right? I have to but it does allow you to quickly get to a picture, and it does allow you to quickly put up a background, but it limits the number of background pictures.
I've been able to use share screen for a lot of the photos. I do a lot of condemnation stuff, so we got a lot of Google Earth photos. Also, check out BlueJeans. I belong to an outfit called the Association of Attorney Mediators. It's a Texas-based group. And a lot of law firms in Texas have switched over to BlueJeans.
Good morning, everyone.
England and Italy going to play? Is that the finals? Is that the?
That's right. That's tomorrow, Ken.
Is
It's a
it?
good game.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, that's
You
what
know,
Claudia.
another great game is tonight. Brazil taking on Argentina. Two kind of rivalries happening all at the same weekend.
So we might want to just take 5 minutes to just tell each other, because it could be useful information for marketing, kind of document what each of us has been doing and whether we've been doing it full-time or part-time. I could start by just saying I've been a mediator, arbitrator, and early neutral evaluator for the federal courts for over 35 years. I've been in practice for 40. I started doing pro bono work for the federal courts, where they used to, in our district, say any case that had a mounting controversy that was under 100,000 went automatically by default to non-binding arbitration, but with a view that, hey, you better treat it seriously, because district judges don't want these small cases in federal court. That was a small case. It's a really small case now. That was a small case even arguably 35 years ago, when they wanted to get rid of them. And so that's how I started. And I sort of continued to grow that pro bono practice over the decades. And then I came into some money, because my real day job is trying sophisticated IP cases in the federal courts. And I came into some money and gave it to a nonprofit called the Foundation, created a nonprofit and gave it a bunch of money called the Foundation for Creativity in Dispute Resolution. And the trademark of that organization is creativity over controversy, kind of a double entendre. So think of it as the view of that organization is very much that what we do as mediators is we bring some creativity to the table. That's actually what we do when we're really doing our best. So I've managed to transition about a third of my time to nonprofit that is mostly mediation, and then nonprofit federal appeals for typically indigent prisoners or poverty-stricken civil litigations, bringing various federal tort claims against various parties. So that's basically been the practice. The other 2/3 of it is essentially high stakes business litigation, mostly IP, mostly computer industry type disputes.
It's a pleasure meeting you all. I know I've met Ken before, and it's great to be a part of this conversation. So yes, I've been a mediator since 2014. I actually also got into being a neutral on a pro bono basis as part of a clinic at where I went to law school, Georgia State Law School, that had this clinic that we were going to really small cases, magistrate court cases, and we got trained in that kind of way. But it was just really eye-opening to me, and just I got a little bit of first glance of actual mediating cases there. Before that, I grew up in a family where both of my grandparents had a very strong reputation in the community, and I saw them playing a part of arbitrator neutral without really wearing that formal hat, but within the community, they were the kinds of go-tos for resolving certain matters when they got out of hand. So I grew up kind of seeing it, and then I was always curious about it. And then once I actually, realized that, oh wow, this is actual formal discipline, then it just, kind of really helped me out. Yes, absolutely. Wisdom of elders. So, it was a really interesting thing for me to be at court. I got my kickstart into practice of law, honestly, just seeing litigators in court. Before that, I was working with syndicators of multifamily, and my kind of process of going to even practice of law and just law school per se at that point in time was more of all these portfolio managers have JDs. It must be a powerful degree to have. So let me just go and see what that is all about. So I was never, with the understanding of, hey, I want to litigate, or I want to actually, quote unquote, be a courtroom attorney or transactional attorney. It was more of just a curiosity. But mediation really helped me actually see the court process. So I stuck with it. I've really enjoyed it. And I honestly became a litigator just so that one day I could be there, done that kind of, process, so that I could understand where the parties are coming from in a mediation proceeding. So that's, my biggest motivator of being a litigator at this point in time. My practice of litigation is a lot of commercial landlord tenancy and eminent domain cases. That's, a lot of what I'm doing. But that's in a nutshell what I've done. I've also been involved in the community. Georgia at some point started this center called Atlanta Center for International Arbitration and Mediation, ACM, which was hosted in the Georgia State Law School, with the aspiration of, let's make this center a global center. Atlanta, I mean, it's a big logistics kind of city. We get just a ton of corporates already here, home base out of here, Delta, Coke, so many others. And the promise was the airport here is a big airport. Cost of coming out here is kind of, relatively cheaper than going out to New York or, West Coast or so many other places. So it was more of, let's start a program where potentially down the line, Atlanta could become a hub, global ADR. So within that, line of thinking, there's, other, just infrastructure that is kind of working at this point in time. And the center hasn't really picked up, from my understanding, just because of just maybe partially COVID, but before that, even just how competitive it is within, these centers, and to keep a baby center off the ground, it's not an easy task. But I've, stayed consistently involved with the community and the ADR community down here. And I've been a part of the Georgia sections at the state bar level, and I have the honor of now serving as the chairman. So it's been really, an exciting journey.
Okay,
And I've recently become an arbitrator. I'm arbitrating cases. I have my first med-arb case, and I'm learning as I go. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm a practitioner of law for 5 years, so I don't know all the answers, but I'm a curious guy, and I try to learn as much as I can.
All right, decide. Okay, thanks. Wayne, you're a barrister, London? And
Yes, I am, and I am a solicitor by training and an attorney at law. I first came from the Caribbean in Barbados, where I was admitted to the bar there in 1993. So it's about 28 years I've been in practice. Started off as a litigator, both in criminal and civil courts, all facets of litigation, injunctions, freezing orders, been involved in all of that. I eventually, after about 7 years into the practice, I started to take a view that litigation, psychologically and even financially, both for on my part as the representative as well as on behalf of the litigants, it was truly a painful and slow process. And upon reflection, was it all worth it? Even if at the end of, from the time a statement of claim is filed until about 5 years into the process and you get a decision on the matter, you then look back and think, well, what was it all worth it? And this was why, in the main, I am attracted more to the ADR style of resolving disputes. So beyond the Caribbean and beyond here, I also practiced in Europe. I worked at some firm in Norway, practiced there, and had some litigation and transactional experience there as well. Within the last 2-3 years, I have made a decided effort now to become more steeped in the ADR process. I'm a qualified arbitrator, accredited arbitrator, and an accredited mediator. I'm actually currently today accepted this morning a new appointment in matter between litigants, one in Ireland and one in Peru, an international commercial arbitration. I find this work very, very exciting. I've done less mediations than arbitrations, but I'm very much involved. I've done about 3 or 4 observations at the moment in mediations, and I'm open now to. I've just recently built a website and getting on board and taking this next half of my career into a full-time ADR practice. And the emphasis now would be on, for the moment, would be on trying to develop the marketing tools and help other mediators.
So Ken, tell us about your practice, because you went a different way.
A little bit about my background. After the Army put me through university, I was career Army for 3-4 years. I got out and went back to law school, and came in. I was in Atlanta, actually, going to be a labor lawyer in Atlanta, and the Department of Justice contacted me and said, we'll offer you twice what the firm is paying you, but you want to work for us? And I said, yes. And I moved to DC. So I was there for a couple of years working criminal division, civil rights division, ended up in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arizona to do some fraud investigations. The local U.S. attorney, that guy hired me to do civil cases. So I spent 2 years there. Moved me back to criminal. I went into private practice with a civil firm. Then I had my own firm for about 8 years, and then they impeached the Republican governor. The next person up was a Democrat, and I was appointed to the bench. That's my qualification to be a judge. I happened to be a Democrat in a Republican state, and there weren't not a lot of Democratic candidates in the judge. I spent about 20 years on the bench. I was the first got involved with ADR when I was the presiding family court judge. And that was in the early 70s. Arizona moved into that ADR pretty quickly, and family court, probate matters, that sort of thing. Later, I'll have transitioned that to our juvenile court and to our civil court. Now in our jurisdiction, probably for the last 20-something years, you cannot get a civil trial date unless you've gone through a meaningful ADR provision. And I was on the committee that set that up. And if you don't do mediation, the judge will find a mediator at no cost for you. So you have to satisfy the qualification. Anyway, I retired in 2007, and I've had a mediation arbitration practice since then. When COVID hit, I'd been training people to do online mediation, paperless mediations. I've had a paperless office since I retired from the bench. I don't do anything physical. I was appointed to something called a complex litigation court as a judge in 2000. It had to be a paperless court, so we transitioned. I got the beta test of paperless court for Arizona at that time. When COVID hit, since then, I've probably done about 250 online or Zoom mediations, probably 20 or so Zoom arbitrations, very simple arbitrations. I got a complex arbitration coming up soon. But the condemnation cases, the condemnation bar in Arizona has asked me to speak in October about what the future is going to look like. And the newer practitioners want to stay with Zoom, want to stay paperless, because they're finding with their big clients for condemnation cases, it's much easier because you have immediate access to all this data on a computer sitting next to you in your office. So that's kind of been my background. And I'm supposed to have been part-time, but I'm actually 4, sometimes 5 days a week now with this mediation practice, and I'm going to cut back a little bit.
You're going to cut back now that you've perfected the paperless mediation office. You want to cut back.
Well, it's killing me. I do want to take some time off, and if they ever list the restrictions, I've got now a 140-mile hike in Wales next June. So I plan to take the month of June and do some hiking in Wales.
Is that 10 days?
No, it's over a month. It's 140 miles over a month. And maybe I'll be going to Tbilisi, Georgia to teach a course on judicial decision-making for the law school in Tbilisi in the fall, if things lift. So I've got it. That's pro bono work. I just pay my way there and they pay my accommodation once I get there. Let me do a screen share of what my thought is about what you guys maybe want to do on the September 10th. And it's coming from meetings with Wayne and Sassan and Jack. Here's the scenario I was just kind of thinking about, and this is kind of what I got to talk to the condemnation bar about in October. It's now post-pandemic, or will be soon. Okay, where do you want to be as a media? How do you want to create, enhance, or create your practice to get business post-pandemic? I think you have to have a desire to appear as a part of a new wave of doing business, which will increase efficiency. All right. But I'll scroll down as we go through it. So
Yeah. Okay.
here's what I thought with you guys, and maybe there may be a Greek mediator. She was in Cyprus. She may be in Athens now, that has gotten into technology kind of in the EU too, that may be joining us. They had a little bit of diversity of female.
Yeah.
All right, my thought is, okay, we're going to have 30 to 60 maybe participants. They're all trained mediators. They're not novices. They've had basics. They've trained to ready to die, but they're really wanting to increase their practice or be part of a new wave. Okay, so how do they do this? All right, so I think you need to design your practice to be paperless, do as much video conferencing as possible. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. Again, this is just my thoughts. Now, there are a couple of outfits. Bridges Academy is available to teach you these online skills that Jack and I were talking about earlier before everybody else joined. Their groups are like 8 to 10, maybe 12 people learning how to use Zoom, really manipulate. And the reason we think that may be important is because the newer practitioners have told me that they prefer me as a mediator because I can manipulate whatever program I'm using, whether it's Blue Jeans or Zoom. I'm not dependent upon a lawyer's office providing the Zoom or a legal technician somewhere, a paralegal doing this.
So you're telling me, Ken, it's not about all your creativity, it's about your technology skills.
That is creativity, because we're talking about you learn to use a typewriter, you dictate it into a dictating machine. Now I'm composing on a computer. As I'm writing, I'm composing. People are doing voice dictation too on a computer. So this is just all part of being a good practitioner. It's not only business, but the newer lawyers are totally into this. And they're going like, let's send a senior partner off the catcher's plane back to Atlanta from Phoenix. We'll continue the mediation because we can manipulate this media. Anyway, Bridges Academy, some of the others will teach mediators how to do it themselves. And you need to practice over and over and over. And that's the reason I point out to develop this skill rather than have your staff done. Also, the cross-cultural attractiveness of this, you can reach out to community groups that are not in your local community. It can be any place in the world. I think you can make yourself attractive to a larger audience, not just the people you've depended on for your practice of law, for example. Are there organizations out there that for Lyft, Skype, Lime, and some of the others that have built-in mediation arbitration contracts in when you sign and rent or get a Lyft or an Uber or whatever? There's organizations that are coming up with, it's called New Era ADR. They're looking for neutrals right now, most of it in the US, and it's going to be e-mediation, e-arbitration. They're using Google Meets, and they'll do all the training for it. Sassan's got some connection through his family to the use of artificial intelligence. How do we use that in your practice? Let me go up a little bit. What hardware do you need? What software do you need? Can you get the bargains on computer equipment, headsets, whatever you want to do? What tools are you going to use to reach your target community? Wayne and I have discussed this. I believe you've got some background in reading and say stay away from the pro bono. But you've probably heard from at least 3 of us, that's kind of how we developed our practice. I volunteered to do pro bono settlement conferences with attorneys with civil probate condemnation cases because I developed my skills as a mediator as I'm doing this pro bono. The lawyers remember me, and if my name's not on the list, they'll call me and say, will you do it for money? Oh yeah, now you're talking my language. So then you can also pick up diverse groups connection to legal resources that perhaps can't fund a lawyer, et cetera, or maybe only a part-time lawyer. We have some kind of a hybrid representation in Arizona where you can have a lawyer assist you in your own pro bono representation. But that might be a group where you want to get your name known and practice your skill. For my pro bono work, I only accept online. And so nobody has a problem with that because you're getting it free. The lawyers are getting it free. I'll give you 3 hours pro bono. It's online only through Zoom, or I'll use that sort of thing. And I thought for this group, we're going to have about 2 hours. The first 30 minutes is getting everybody connected. Have an hour and a half discussion group. That if Wayne wanted to do a role play as a startup mediator, wanting to build your practice, that should be role, not rile. That's a skill I have not developed as either a lawyer or as a mediator, spelling. So it should say role. Sassan, in the role of a mediator with a practice, and you're in an ADR leadership role with a bar association, what do you want to put out to the Georgia bar? What does the future look like for online mediation, technology and mediation? Jack, you got a very in-depth background in technology. You're pretty prolific at coming up with ideas and past practice in technology, especially on the business side. How do you develop business? So you could play the role as a mentor for techno mediators, is what I call them. How do you design the paperless remote practice? And how do you get business using these various tools that are coming up down the line? Claudia and I'll act as mentors, monitors, discussion leaders, kind of keeping people back on track and focus now. All right, I'll stop to share, but that's kind of what my thought was for the group we're going to have on the September 10th. It's going to be a very diverse group. These are experienced mediators from all over the world, but they're not necessarily experienced in the use of technology or to enhance their business or their practice. So what questions can you throw out to encourage discussion? What ideas do you have? What works for you? And what works in Atlanta will probably not work for the audience that Wayne may have in London or in the UK or Wales or wherever you want to focus. But I do think there are overall overarching skill sets we'll find common, not only in mediation, but in technology. Data protection, for example. How do you go beyond a web page? Do you go to Facebook or Twitter to enhance their practice? Just ideas and resources that you can reach out to cheaply. I've got a place where I buy rebuilt cheap computer equipment, monitors, that sort of thing. Now Amazon has bought them, but it's a real cheap place for buying computer equipment. What other software programs are out there?
Stay tuned for part 2 of this episode of The Valley Current.